5 past the time that we were supposed to start, so I think we've given enough time for people to just start or amble in. In case you haven't done so already, please make sure that you open the Etherpad window, which is essentially, if you go down on the wall, you will notice like meetup resources or meeting resources, and you will see a link to the Mozilla Etherpad. Just click on that, and it should open up a shared window. And in that window,
sorry, don't see it at all.
On the meetup on the wall? No, not the meetup. On the freeconferencecall.com/wall/SDA skills, you should be able to see meeting resources somewhere.
No, don't. I've got a little graph of a phone, a video, bunch of people. There's a chat, screen settings, and more options, and that's the grand total.
All right. So let me do this then. In that case, let me take the Etherpad and paste that link on the meetup website as well. So just put it in multiple places so that we can see somewhere.
Well,
it's in the meetup. In the meetup, if you look at the comments,
I just added the link to the messages on the free conference call, so you can check there.
Yeah. And it's also on the meetup, the actual meetup. You would notice that it's in the comments. I have actually posted the dial-in information and the scratchpad. Are you able to see that?
Right.
Yeah, okay, just a minute. I've got too many windows open. Just a minute.
That is all right.
Well, I'm also monitoring my daughter who's driving from Kalamazoo, Michigan to past Albany, New York today. So
multitasking at its best, I guess.
Well, yeah, except.
All right, so folks who are on, please do start reading the question. We will be discussing the design question first, and then we will get on with the coding question immediately thereafter. So who has actually seen the design question and who's got a thought about how to solve it?
I've seen it, but haven't had much time to think about it.
All right, so can you just repeat the question and explain the question in your own words?
Just a minute.
Sure.
It's basically you have to keep separate groups of top trending topics in last 5 minutes, 1 hour, 24 hours. And so it's 3 lists, but I would imagine that candidates from one would become candidates for the next.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just very, very roughly.
Sure. So let me take a step back and explain the question, right? So for folks who you must have seen on Facebook on the right-hand side, you have like top trending news, or on Twitter you see like top trending hashtags and things like that. So let's assume that we somehow had a way of finding out like every time someone uses like a hashtag, we know that they've used the hashtag. So the goal here is to find out what were like the top 10 hashtags in the last 5 minutes that were used by people across the globe on your website, which is say Twitter for this case. And we also need to aggregate the same information to see what was the top hashtag that was used in the last hour and the last 24 hours. Like so, it's a 5 minute, 1 day, and like 5 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day. So how would you go about doing that? What kind of data structures would you use? How would you store this information? And what other considerations would you have? It's more of a design question, so it's very open-ended by definition.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of have to.
So in what format the data is coming, or that is open to? Like
it is open to discussion, so what would you want it to be?
Pack it up and take it away.
And people who are not actively speaking and you have background conversations, can you just go hit the mute button on the interface or on your phone? Thank you. All right, go ahead.
So at basic level, in the end, to generate this output, like I always go from end to the top, like what I need. So in the end, what I need is that I need the data into these 3 or 4 buckets, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 24 minutes bucket. the topics and then maybe their count, right? Like what's
Well, you need the time this occurred. That would be the only way to,
like the time could come into the like eventually when someone say let's think about the Twitter because we are talking about hashtag. So when I tweet something, right, the timestamp is into that tweet, but
right.
to maintain the data, actually I don't need to maintain the timestamp because I just need to maintain the 3 different buckets, right? So as a tweet is coming in, I can see when the tweet comes in, what's the timestamp, and then
Hi guys, this is Vinny.
For eviction, yes, I will require.
That is correct. It is a sliding window. So there are 2 ways to look at this. One could be that you're actually aggregating the data at a 5-minute level, and you're just saying that last 5 minutes this was the thing, as in between 12 o'clock and 12:05 this was the top trending topics, and 12:06 through 12:10 this was the topic, and you can do that in buckets. In which case there is no concept of eviction. You can just aggregate data in 5-minute chunks and you can just go for it. But that's most likely not what we want. What we actually want is for this section, hey, folks, please, who are not talking, can you go on mute, please? All right. So for this one, what we are actually talking about is the specific scenario where, like, you want a sliding window of 5 minutes. So once the 5 minute is done, I want the oldest, like 5 minute and 0.1 second data, like to be evicted automatically. So how would you do that without the timestamp?
So like for the 5-minute data, like right now I'm making an assumption, which might be a true assumption or false assumption, is say the data for 5 minutes window is going to be lesser than the data for a 24-hour window, right? Assuming here, so let me first put down my one big assumption. I'm assuming that the data is huge. So
can you write your assumptions in the Etherpad?
Okay. Yeah, let me write.
And folks who have just joined right now, we are discussing the design question. And if you're not speaking, can you please go on mute? And in the meetup, what we have is a list of like the Etherpad links where you can go and click on it. That's a shared scratchpad that folks are using. All right, go ahead. You had something you were saying. What your assumptions were?
There. So first assumption that I wrote is we have very large amount of data, right? And now I'm writing up the data that I may want to, like, I may eventually need to calculate like what's trending. Because like setting up, like my objective is that setting up this basic information will help me baseline it with the interviewer and then see if I'm going in the wrong direction or if I have wrong assumptions, then they can tell me, oh, this is not what I want. Because like every system, I need to look into from input-output perspective and then optimize for whatever output we are looking at.
Fair enough. So you have large amount of data, so that is good, and that is correct. We are actually looking at, this is like Twitter, pretty much like trends or something like that. And you can imagine this is something that's happening like in a sporting event or a debate or some kind of an event. So you're trying to count the number of tweets. Like when we had the Republican primary debate going on, we were counting the number of tweets that was for each of the candidates, and was pretty much plotted in real time. So people were actually plotting the data on a minute basis, and then they were also like aggregating the data, saying overall during the 1 hour debate, like this candidate had most number of tweets and this candidate had less number of tweets or something. So that's kind of the goal. Yeah. So you will have large number of data, like millions of records.
Yeah. So I'm still trying to quantify because that will define my memory requirement. That will require my active connections or active stuff. So I'm assuming that there is an.
We only need top 10. We only need top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still I need to see at what rate I have incoming topics, right? At what rate I am getting hashtags, where at what rate people are putting hashtags into their tweets, because I need to analyze each and every tweet.
Correct.
Right? So I'm just defining my incoming rate of the data, because based on to that I can make some decisions.
Correct. So does that make sense for other folks? Is there anyone else who has a different opinion, question, or a thought?
Well, if you aggregate, okay.
Go on. What was the question?
I just had a question. So when you said top 10, so does the one with the top 10 in the 5 minutes like change? Is it like inclusive, or are they the 3 separate trends? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how the 1 hour, just an hour ago, or in the last 1 hour?
In the last 1 hour.
Okay.
So which means that if I'm looking at 4:46 p.m., then the 5-minute data will contain the top 10 from between 4:41 to 4:46. The last 1 hour thing will contain from 3:46 to 4:46. And 1 day thing will contain from yesterday's 4:46 to 4:46 now. Maybe 4:47 to 4:46, given that you have to let go of 1 minute, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So this would be like a typical system design interview question. It's essentially it depends on where the interviewer wants to take this. It could be an object-oriented design where they actually talk about modeling the data structure and the class diagrams and what are the different entities in the system and the behavior of each entity. So it could be that, or it could be like a data kind of interview question where we're talking about how would you store this much of data and how would you process this much of data in real time, and what kind of structure would you use to do that?
I mean, one of the questions I have is it? I mean, does it have to be exact or some sort of an approximation? And the reason why I'm asking is, if it was exact, then when I see for the tweet for the first time, or a hashtag for the first time, I wouldn't know if this is going to be trending or not. So I will have to maintain all these unique guys at least for 5 minutes, right? I mean,
Go on.
Yeah, I mean, so whatever the period of time, right? I mean, this happens, and I'm start getting, even if I'm getting fairly, the thing is that if my the guy, the current, there is the current state that I have, which is like, assume that I have solved it in some way, and there are like top 10 there, right? Obviously I will need some sort of a key value store so that I can look up if if one of them is there, update the counter and update the timestamp associated to it. Otherwise I need to keep it around. It could be that I will see it exactly only once, but a priori I don't know, right? It could be that this becomes the first 4 minutes there is no activity, and then there is the 5th minute there's a huge surge of activity. So the one that I'm looking at is the one that never had anything for the first 4 minutes. It would have never been in the top 10 for sure, but suddenly it's going to surge in popularity or whatnot. I mean, in that sense, I don't want to keep it like maybe one. It's just that it is not part of top 10 until the 4th minute, and the 5th minute it's going to become part well, I mean, maybe I'm thinking about it wrong.
No, I think what you're saying at a high level, it makes sense. I think the way what I'm hearing you say is that you are looking at this as saying that, let's say for 4 minutes and like 50 seconds, you just had 100 hits or something like that. In the last 10 seconds, if you had suddenly 10,000 hits come up for just one tweet or one tag, then all it means is that will suddenly shoot up to the top 10, obviously.
Right. I mean, it should not be the key thing is that, it should not be it becomes the top 10 no matter, it becomes part of the top 10 no matter what. It becomes top 10 only if I count, what had happened in that 4 minute 50 seconds. So that's why that count is also important. If it was becoming anyway, then it's okay. I wouldn't even notice the problem.
Okay.
The thing I notice is that you've got 3 sliding windows, but you're aggregating every 5 minutes. So you basically have some kind of unit to store 5 minutes worth of data, and then of course at a certain point they all drop off. Do you understand what I mean?
I follow you. Go on.
Yeah. So you've got 5 minutes, and then you've got an hour, and then you've got 24 hours. So you need to only keep around 24 hours of these 5-minute slots.
But which 5-minute slots? Because it's not just one 5-minute slot, right? There are
the whole range of 5-minute slots that pertain to the largest granularity you're aggregating for, which is the 24 hours.
Okay. So one question that I didn't hear, which I think I'm gonna state it anyways, is that I did mention in minutes, right? I said if I'm just typing to if at 4:46 p.m. on the 10th, I'm asking for information. I need you to aggregate between 4:41 through 4:45, right? That is the time. That's the 5-minute window.
Okay.
And then, and so on. So the question I have for you. Let me just complete this one second. The question I have is it how granular is it? Is it at a microsecond level? Is it at a nanosecond level? Or is it at a minute level? So can I just eviction can happen at a minute level, or should I be very specific about doing it at exactly millisecond or nanosecond or microsecond level? And that's a question I would ask, and typically it would be at a minute level. So my focus would be that if I'm asking the question at 4:46, I want you to give me the data between 41 and 45 or 42 and 46, depending on whatever is accurate. And if I ask you at 49, then I want it to be from 45 to 49. That's 5 intervals, right?
Okay, so we've got minute storage units then.
That is correct.
And at a certain point they slide off. You can ditch them. You can ditch them once you're past 24 hours.
Completely. So you will actually have to keep at minute granularity in different buckets, so that you can just simply truncate or terminate whatever was that many minutes ago. 1,440.
How about if you maintain something like a priority queue? So as the topic comes in, you keep a counter, so you insert it into the priority queue with a count. So the first one comes, you insert it as with 1. And then next one comes, if the topic already there, you just increment the count. So you kind of have something like a max heap.
Emilio.
So, hello?
Yes, hello?
Yeah, that's okay. Go on.
Yeah. So
people are probably announcing their joins.
Yeah, something like a max heap where you have the count. So if the topic already there, so the top one will be at the top. So now, how many? When you're talking about the max heap, how many you want to keep? So
what to keep is really, really tough, because you don't know what's going to happen in 24 hours. See.
No, if you keep track of, let's say, at any point in time, if you keep track of the minimum time, right, the minimum element with the timestamp, if it is anything greater than, like anytime you insert it, like, if it's greater than 5 minutes, let's talk about a 5-minute window. So anything greater than 5-minute window, you just delete that entry.
Well, you have to hold on to it for the hour and the 24 hours, but yes, you can delete it for the 5-minute bucket.
Right. So if you have 3 of them, like if you have a 5-minute priority queue and then another one for 1 hour and another one for 24 hours.
So without optimizing the data, from what I'm hearing is that you will essentially have a priority queue which is actually holding the 5-minute data, a priority queue that's holding the 1 hour data, the priority queue that's holding the 24-hour data, and what you're doing is that you are adding, when you add, like when one tweet comes in, you're adding it to each of the 3 priority queues, like increasing the value in each of them.
Exactly. I mean, we can see how we can optimize,
Yeah, we'll figure out the optimization later, but just keeping them as independent solutions, that's what we would do. And how would you evict? I mean, how would you delete and evict?
So the delete is, if I add something like, if I add a maximum thing, like I want to keep top 10, right? So did you say top 10 or?
Yes.
Okay. So when I have, like, let's say like a topic comes in which is not there in the priority queue, and it is the 11th one. So now I go and look at the last one, which is the greater than 5 minutes, and evict that one.
That's not how it will work, right? What will be the number of elements in your priority queue for the 5-minute one?
For the 5-minute one, only the 10, the top 10.
Okay, that will not work.
You will have the topic.
You will have to store everything, because let's say that in the first minute I had one topic, right, which just came in like only 5 times. Topic A came in 5 times. In the second minute, you had B all the way to Z, like come in, I don't know, 20, 21, 22, and so on and so forth, right? So you will only keep 10 of B to Z.
Yeah,
right?
so
in the third minute, if I have 16 come in, you would have evicted A, and you would have lost the data that A came in 5 times in the first minute, and you're done, right? That is not right.
Yeah, I know.
What's the lifetime of a hashtag?
It's like lifetime has 5 minutes, 1 hour, and 24 hours.
No. That's not the window. A hashtag. So, like, can a hashtag go on forever? Say it can say I created a hashtag, and it was trending for the first day. It was trending second for the third day, and again it trends first on. So that means there is no. A hashtag can go on forever.
A hashtag can go on forever, but if you have a hashtag that's something like Bill Clinton for president, which happened like so many years ago, it may not happen again. Maybe somebody will revive it or something now, but when they do that, it's a different story. Right? We are only looking at the hashtags that were alive in 5 minutes, 1 hour, and 24 hours. Any hashtag that was alive before 24 hours is irrelevant, right?
Yep. Okay, so the 24-hour can be a hashtag lifetime also, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I think what I heard,
you can get rid of anything that's over 24 hours old.
That is correct. And so essentially what I heard was, since we are aggregating at a 1 minute granularity, what I heard was that we want to keep 1 minute data and keep 1440 interval periods, so that as a new interval period comes in, we can terminate and truncate the old interval period.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes sense. So that keeps like that you're actually solving for the 24-hour. Essentially, that's the 24-hour heap or priority queue. And you have to keep all the data that actually came in the last 24 hours. You can't just play with it, in the sense that you can't like reduce that number anyways, because what may happen is like what happened like 12 hours ago can suddenly resurface now, and that becomes the top 24-hour topic. So you can't just truncate that. So if I were to take this as a simple case, what we would be doing is that we would actually have, for every topic, we would have to aggregate the count. So you would probably use some kind of a hash map so that you can actually figure out what the count looks like for that. That's like probably number one. Number two is you'll end up having 3 priority queues, which actually, again, in the hash map, it's just not one value, it's probably 3 values. one which is essentially number of hits that happened in the last 5 minutes, number of hits that happened in the last 1 hour, and number of hits that happened in 24 hours. And you'll also keep the interval period data, which is like essentially incoming interval period and outgoing interval period. So in the last 1 minute, if you had 10,000 hashtags that had different numbers, you just have to go to your hash map and go add all the values. And in the last 1 minute, whatever got evicted, last 1 hour eviction, and last 5 minute, 1 day, and 1 hour evictions, you just have to go subtract those values at respective times. So every minute, you will be adding the same data to 3 different values, and you will be deleting values based on 3 different lists. One list which is like 1 day and 1 minute old, one list which is 1 hour and 1 minute old, and 1 day which is one data which is 5 minute and 1 minute, which is 6 minutes old.
The only saving grace you've got is that once you've at a certain point, the data becomes old enough that you only have to delete it from the 24-hour because it's too old to be in the 5-minute and the 60-minute.
That is correct. So when the data becomes 0, when you delete it from the 24 hours, and the data actually becomes 0, because you're decrementing the count in the hits, right? So once it becomes 0, you can completely evict it from that data, the hash map.
So I mean,
why is it a hash map? Why is it a hash map?
That is another question I had. Like, could we have similar hashtags that we want to keep into one single bucket, like count them as one? Like, for example, with some grammatical mistake, or like Seattle or Seattle, something like that.
Correct, but in that case, what you will actually have in the hashtag as a key is the group name or a group ID or something like that. So in any case, it will be a hash map, but why is it a hash map? Why is it not a list? Why is it not a tree? Why is it not a heap?
You need to look up based on the tag.
It is, can I say something? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, please. Sorry,
so
we were just speaking over you. Go ahead.
What I think it is a hash map, because in a hash map, if the key already exists, it replaces the value with the current value. It does not remove the key. So what we need to do is, if the topic is currently existing, we need to increment its value if it is shared again. So that's what it does. It replaces the value. It serves a purpose here. That's why it's a hash map.
We also need to keep some sort of an ordering based on to the count, right? Because we need top 10 trending. So here we need 2 keys. Basically, one is a key based on to the hash map or the hashtag, and another we need a different order based on to their count, because eventually that's what we want to take out.
Good point there. So we need to the reason why it's a hash map, and I think I'm just kind of speeding it up a little to get to the chase so that we can jump into the coding questions as well, is that the reason why it needs to be hash map is because the data that comes to you is in terms of like topic 1 was tweeted 100 times in the last few minutes. In the last 1 minute, and topic 2 was 20 times, topic 3 was 15 times, and so on. And you need to find a way to quickly identify the record that corresponds to that particular tweet so that you can go and increment the data values. So since you have to do that, hash map seems to be the best way of doing it, so that you can have a key and a value, and you will be able to go fetch that record and add that up. So that's great. But that's for the input data, and that's for like bookkeeping. Now for the output data, which is the top 10, clearly you have to use a priority queue. Right? Because you're doing a sliding window concept, so you have to use a priority queue, and in the priority queue, again you'll do the same thing, which is to essentially go down the priority queue and like increment or decrement. Can you just use a priority queue and not a hash map and still get away with it?
No, because the priority doesn't give you a key-based access to its elements.
But anyway, you have to go do that, right? You have to go decrement. You have to redo the priority order every time you get the key, every time you get a new tweet, or every time there is an eviction. So
I think you're just going to have to aggregate on the fly whenever somebody asks from the hash map.
What I would do instead is that
expensive. Go on.
I would do this rehashing maybe at a minute interval, because we are anyways considering all the tweets like at the minute boundary and all of them coming like because I don't need to do it in the real time.
That is correct.
I have another idea. So how about like if we have an hash map and then it's a topic ID and then it points to your node, a doubly linked list queue node. So the way you do is like the hash map. So the topic ID is the key, and that points to the node in the doubly linked list, which actually has a counter. So anytime, like if you have a topic it comes in, so you go to the if it already exists, you go to the node, increment it, and then move in front of the queue.
I think that will be it's more of a like an insertion sort kind of a mechanism that you're looking at, and I'm not sure if it's going to give you the kind of time complex you're looking at, right? Because how do you know whether you want to move it all the way to the front or little to the front? You'll have to do a lot of comparisons before you get there, right? To the right place that it needs to go to.
Because of the count we need, top 10, yeah.
Correct. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is turn this question around now at this point. I think we've had a discussion. So from an interview perspective, for a technical design, what do you think are the salient features or important points? Like what are we supposed to consider? We're done with this question at this point, so I'm just like wanting to hear from you. How easy was it or how hard was it? Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry. So what was the reason why whether you could just use a priority queue alone?
I think you don't need a hash map at all, in the sense that the hash map is required only to aggregate the data at the 1 minute level. Okay, if you get a stream of data, right, you're going to get a data which is saying this is a tweet and here's a timestamp. That's what you're going to get, right? You just need a hash map which actually aggregates the 1 minute interval, which is you need to keep the interval period data like we had the feedback earlier. We need to keep 1,440 interval periods. That's kind of the stream that's coming in. And then you don't need any other hash map because the priority queue itself, you'll have to anyway go down the priority queue to get the element. It's going to give you log n access. It's not going to give you O of 1 access. But in order to manipulate the data, in order to add or delete, you still have to do that anyways. So just because it's in a hash map elsewhere doesn't really give you any advantage. So I don't think you need a separate hash map for this.
I see. I mean, the reason why I'm thinking a hash map will help is because if you can maintain only the elements that are top trending in the priority queue, that gives you the the order in which so to speak the rank in which the elements are trending, right? Whereas if you keep all of them, then
I understand what you're saying, but here's the challenge with that. The challenge with the specific thing that you're asking for is actually it's practically impossible to get the top 10 based on just keeping the top 10, because at the 4th minute or the 3rd minute you may actually have a sudden surge of something that came from that when combined with the surge that happened on minute 1 can outshoot everything else. So you need to keep all the data. And without that,
but the thing is
exactly right. As soon as I insert the element in the hash map, I'm going to check with the minimum value in the priority queue. And if the priority queue size is hopefully it is 10. If it is 10, all I need to know is that evict that and add this, right? My priority.
I think you're right. I see what you're saying. So you're going to use the hash map to do the counting, and then you're going to use the priority queue only for the top 10. And if the newly arrived data is actually not helping, if it's not increasing something that is in the top 10 and it is not something that's going to change the top 10, then you don't care.
Right, yeah, because I can do an O of 1 lookup for the minimum
because it's only 10.
Right.
And it's only 10. Even editing is not going to be a problem for that. So that's a better solution. Absolutely.
I don't have the caveats to it, but just like occurs to me.
No, fantastic. So I just want to take 5 minutes at least to talk about what is important in an interview, in a technical design question, and what are the things that we should be looking at, and what would we do. How many of you have actually heard this question before? Just curious. Yes, no.
I have a similar question for building a cache.
Okay. And how do you react when someone actually throws you a design question like this? How do you react? What do you think of? What do you feel? What do you say? How does it work for you?
For me, the design questions always feel very open-ended. Like I constantly fear that the interviewer might not, it may not value what I'm saying because he and I are not thinking about the same problem or addressing the same problem or our experience in the domain are coming from different perspectives. Like what you said, you were you could look at it whether you are looking at a problem decomposition or whether you're looking at addressing a data problem or whether you're addressing an interface problem. So I think I find design questions very open-ended. and same with here. I was grappling initially to figure out what is this asking for even.
Actually, that's a key part of it, I think.
Exactly. That is by design. That is by choice. That is how it's engineered, right? So the way design questions are actually, the way it works is it's more around, it's typically like any problem-solving activity. You have to go wide first. Like you have to try different approaches, try to kind of get your arms around or head wrapped around what the problem is, how this is going to work, and things like that. That's the first step. And then once you figure out your candidates, you have to quickly eliminate the bad ones very easily and start picking your winning ones. And your solution that you're picking by intuition may not be the best solution, but you just have to have a reason why you're picking it. And as long as you move forward, typically an interviewer will know what the best solution is, and they may choose to actually guide you towards the best solution, or they may be comfortable with you taking the second or third best solution and moving on, because usually it's always a trade-off, right? There could be one where there's more space usage but less time, or it takes a little more time but it's more space optimized, or one is actually has amortized cost, which means you're doing some pre-computation and things like that. So each of these things have it's the objective of the interview question is not to arrive at the answer that the interviewer has in his or her mind. The goal is actually to demonstrate a consistent thought process and your ability to think of multiple scenarios and actually pick a decision or like arrive at a narrow set of solutions and then go forward with it. The more you actually go down, once you've actually gotten down the track, now we'll start adding some more complexities, and the complexities are added more in terms of either addition of constraints or elimination of constraints. And we would say, well, you know what, when I said 1 million, I lied. It's actually 2 billion. Now, how does that change? And we're looking at how you're able to extend your algorithm or your approach in pretty logical ways. And in very rare cases, I've actually seen candidates have an open mind, which actually says, now that you have given me this new constraint, I think this entire approach is all garbage. Let me go back and pick the second best option that I had discarded earlier because that can support a larger thing and so on. I mean, that kind of, for example, you pick the top 10 approach, right? If I had said, like, what if I don't need top 10, but if I needed like top 10, top 100, top 2,000, top 10,000, I mean, it's like a variable number. How would that change your approach, right? And then you would have to have the foresight and thinking to say, maybe I have to like redo from the scratch. And that decision also is like a mature decision point that you have to arrive at. So that's kind of how I look at it. This is just like one hiring manager's perspective. I have been through a bunch of interview questions in the past with many folks, and this is how I interpret a design question. Again, there's no good way to prepare for it except to keep talking about interview questions and apply yourself. And I don't really see any easy way. I've never run interview questions, like design interview questions, in this kind of a format and forum before, especially with this large number. So I apologize if I've not let a lot of people speak in this case. But if you have any questions or suggestions or feedback, please let me know. Drop me an email. And if there's anyone who has like any other thought that you want to share with others, go for it now. In about a couple of minutes, I want to switch to the coding question.
I thought it was pretty interesting and useful.
All right. Awesome. Anybody else?
I remember being in many whiteboard meetings, given the problem, and people were thinking out loud with each other, and sometimes one person has the brain, sometimes the other, and the idea is that between all of you, you flesh out the holes and you define better the problem.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. I think that's, unfortunately, in the interview setting, it's just you and your interviewer, or interviewers if there are a couple. But usually, interviewers are actually extremely interested in actually guiding you towards like the solution, and it generally works well.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm sorry.
Moving on. Go on.
Does it also involve any class design and actually coding for these design questions, or?
Yes, I think I mentioned that earlier. I mean, this the phone format like we're doing right now is actually very hard for me to run like a system design in terms of like interaction diagrams and figure out like who the actors are, the use cases, sequence diagrams, or even class design. It's very hard without like a shared whiteboard of sorts. So I kind of took it more in terms of like a designing of data structures in this case, and try to like problem solve how you store it and how you retrieve it. That's how I've done it this time. But different interviews do focus on different things, and you may be asked to do that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So switching gears, we've got about 43 minutes to get into the next to the set of questions. If you don't get to all the questions, I'll let you guys do that offline and send me. I can do some code reviews. So first question that I have is like a super simple one. Anyone who actually read this and is interested in trying it out?
The first question?
Yeah, the first one, which is that you're given an array of size 2n with n odd numbers. It's actually on the blog. If you look at it,
I've got it in front of me.
All right.
One of the things that occurred to me is it says even numbers can be in any location, odd or even. But if odd numbers can only be in odd-numbered locations, and you've got an array of 2n, that would imply that even to make it possible for the odd numbers to be in odd-numbered locations, the even ones will have to be in even locations.
That is a correct assumption, and it's just there to kind of throw you off the game if you're not thinking straight. Clearly, yes. I think somebody in the comments below had asked the same question.
Well, I wasn't asking the question. I was just basically saying, from what I read, this is the assumption I have to make.
Yeah. No, it said like, how can it be? How is it even possible? Was a question which people had when they look at this. The question is actually kind of set up. If you're not paying attention to it, you could get lost in the weeds. But obviously, if there are only half the elements are odd and odd numbers are odd number location, then even numbers have to be in the even number location. There's no other option.
No, but like
how would you go about doing it?
Even numbers can be more in count than odd numbers, right? So whatever, because
they're exactly n and n. The first assumption they're exactly n and n.
Oh, they're exactly n and n. Okay. Then actually it is a very simple solution. I can iterate the algorithm how we can do that.
I've come up with a solution in my head, but I'm not going to speak at this point. Is somebody else going to?
Yeah, I can say. So, and what I'm going to do is
in the interest of making sure there's more participation, just saying if there's anybody else who wants to give it a shot, speak now, or you can go ahead. All right, let me just give 1 minute for others to see if anybody else wants to. This is a good opportunity for you to actually do this live in front of multiple folks and actually express your thinking. Interview practice is not a spectator sport. Participation absolutely helps. Right? Anybody else who actually wants to volunteer writing this question? Line number 39 onwards. Why? Come on, you got like what, 25, 30 people on the line. So it's okay to be wrong. I mean, start with some, pretend this is a real interview. I mean, you could be stumbling around. That's fine. All right, it's all you. Go ahead. Given that we don't have people volunteering, it's all you. Go for it.
So what I'm thinking is that I will keep 2 pointers. I'll start from the start of the list, and I will keep 2 pointers. One is the current pointer, which is always be on to an element which is an odd number element, but it has an even number value. Okay, and then the second element, the second number, I will just traverse through forward, and I will find an odd number element at an even number location, and I will just swap them. And then, I will begin from the next element which I just swapped. And when I will reach at the end of the list, then I've done it, right? I've maintained the...
So what you're implying is that one of your indexes is pointing to odd-numbered, or not odd-numbered, but odd-numbered locations, and one of your pointers is pointing at even-numbered locations, correct?
Yeah, so what's happening is that I have one pointer, which is, so basically what I want to do is, I want to swap an element which is at the wrong position, right? Which is at an even position, but it is an odd number, right? So my first pointer is finding such an element, and my second pointer is staying at a location where I can swap it. Because if I have an odd number at an even index, then I will have an even number at an odd index.
So are both of your pointers starting from the beginning of the array?
Yes.
Okay.
And they are proceeding until I find an even number at an odd location. Then one pointer stops there.
One pointer will start at 0, the other pointer will start at 1, right? And you would increment the pointers by 2 every time. One is the even pointer, which will actually go 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. And the other one's the odd pointer, which goes 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on. And you iterate through the even pointer first to identify a location, an index in the array such that A of E is odd. So it will stop at like 10 or 12 or something, where the A of 12 is actually an odd number. And then you will find the same thing as O, where O will go as 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on, till you find A of O is actually an even number. And once you find it, you can just swap these two and just continue your quest for an odd number in an even location and an even number in an odd location. At what point would you stop this?
When one of my pointers crosses reaches to end of the array.
One or both, or the first one or the second one?
Like whichever. If one pointer crosses the end of the array, then I'm done, right? Either I have, so there could be two outcomes. Either I have placed all the odd number elements at the right location, or if the second pointer reaches to the end first, it means I have not found a good place where I can swap.
Is there anyone who disagrees with this assertion? So I have two things to say here, right? Number one is I had to ask you this question as to when will you stop the loop, and that's not a good idea in an interview. So you should be thinking, when you're doing a loop question, when you're doing a loop, you have to talk about a termination condition. Like when you talk about recursion, when you talk about all of that, termination condition has to be there. I mean, the fact that you're able to answer it after I ask is great, but that's the difference between an outstanding performance and a good performance.
Oh, so okay. I was assuming that. Yeah. Okay. I was assuming, because I'm saying that I'm going to iterate through the loop sequentially till the end. Like I was assuming that. I implied that. Yeah. I'm not disagreeing. All I'm saying is that you must please do that.
right?
Yeah.
Number two is so that's number one. Number two is that when you're looking at like this particular question, there is no way, like whichever you do first, right, that has to reach the end, not the second pointer. Because if you find an odd mismatch, let's assume you're doing the even ones first, right? If you find an even mismatch, there has to be an odd mismatch given the input condition.
Yeah.
There are two n elements, so it has to be there. So there is absolutely no circumstance when the second pointer will actually reach the end and the first pointer would have found a mismatch. That's not possible.
No, so like I was considering the error scenario where I have incorrect, like I have an input which is not valid.
So as an interviewer who has probably run this question like hundreds of times,
yeah,
I know some of the candidates would come back with this specific assertion, and that again is the difference between like exceptional performance and average or like above average performance. The fact that you have the answer is great, but to me the exceptional performance would be that you have this problem like clearly mapped in your head. Like there is absolutely no chance that this will happen unless there is an error condition. So I want you to ask that question. So when I'm asking a question saying like which one, either or both or the first one or the second one, I want you to come in and ask that question saying, am I to assume that the data is going to be exactly how you've given, or could there be like mismatches in that?
Okay.
Because that will vary. And if the data is exactly that way, then only the first one will fail. If the data is wrong, then you know what, anything can happen. So, so that's what I'll be looking forward to. And if my first index does not overrun and the second one, like both of them have to complete at the same time. Right? If the first one completes, and then if I iterate the second one, that will also complete. If one of them stops and the other one completes, then the data is actually incorrect, and that's kind of what it is. So where I'm going with this is just more like a feedback for folks is that when you're looking at any loop-based questions or something, make sure that you're upfront about the termination condition, and even for the termination condition, if you're making assumptions about the data or the valid or invalid states of data, generally I would start with the assumption that the data is valid, but it's not a bad idea to actually state that. Like assuming that the data is valid, like how you've given, I expect this to complete first, and so on. So in this case, you had all the answers. I would expect you to like be upfront, and to me that would be amazing, like exceptional performance, versus having the data and me having to extract it. A, it takes time and prevents you from like further shining in a later part of the interview, and B, it's like you're making me ask, so I'm not sure if you're even thinking about it deeply, and that's a question you want to avoid. All right? Okay. Any questions? We're not going to code this. This is super simple. If you guys have any issues or trouble coding this, we can just ping me on the meetup or send me an email, and I'll respond to you. And feel free to send me your code. I can review and send it back. All right? Awesome. Moving on to the second question. This is another classic interview question that I've seen, which is you're given an array of size n. They're all integers, some positive, some negative. Your goal is actually to rearrange the array so that all non-zero numbers are collected to the left and all the zeros are collected to the right. You do not have extra space. Since there are negative numbers that are possible, you cannot sort because there are negative numbers that are possible, so it may be an issue. But go on.
So I will take two indexes, one from the 0th position, and so basically like a left index, and then a right index which starts from the last element of the array. And I'll start the loop until they cross over each other, while left is moving forward and right is coming backward. So I mean I'll run the loop until they cross each other, and if the array of left is not equal to 0, which means that it is a non-zero number, right? So it's so I will increment the left index, whereas if the left index is pointing to a 0 number and the right index is pointing to a non-zero number, I'll swap them. and I'll increment the left pointer and I'll decrement the right pointer.
So does that make sense to others? Like,
and there is one more condition.
Go on.
How about we take two? Okay, can I? Are you?
Go ahead.
Go on. So how about we take 2 pointers, one at the last position and one at the second last position, and just because we want to get all the zeros at the end. So if we get a non-zero number, we'll swap it to the left. And if we get a zero, like in the current situation we have on the second last situation, like second last position we have 0 and the last position is 7, we'll swap it. And then we have 6 and 7. We'll keep it as is. And then we compare, so we are sliding to the left, and then we have 0 and 6. We'll again compare, we'll again swap and put 0 to the right, but again we'll have 7 somewhere, and then we would have to swap again. Can we use a stack for this? I think stack would be...
Anybody has any concerns with this algorithm?
I like the first one.
Doing it like this partition, yeah, that should work. I mean, have one left pointer, have one right pointer. That's an approach.
No, I think it's very identical to the previous question, right?
Yeah.
Instead of it being like in the previous question you did even and odd, in this question you have to do left and right, and that's about it. Isn't it?
Yep.
Why are we struggling with it? I mean, the fact that we discussed the first question at somewhat length, you should be immediately coming to this solution, and this solution is actually suboptimal. The solution that we talked about, that I'm talking about, having 2 pointers, one on the left and one on the right, is actually not an optimal solution. Why? So let me explain the solution first. I think that's what the who was speaking earlier was saying, was that you keep a pointer in the left, you start from the left, you identify the first 0 element, and then you start in a pointer from the right, you identify the first non-zero element, you swap them, and then you keep going. What is the termination condition? When both the pointers collide, right?
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
This is not an optimal solution. Why? Can you do it with 1 pointer and not 2? Technically, you can call it 2 pointers, but it's still 2 pointers. But maybe another example, another way of doing this would be that you really don't need to.
Of the array thinking, right? Right.
Here is an alternate solution for you, and it's not really very efficient. It's a similar in the big O concept and stories. It's not much, but essentially what you're doing is you start from the left, and you start looking at identify the first element, that's 0, right? And then what you're doing is you're just like taking the element and just instead of swapping, all you're doing is you are moving the element to the left, like just that element. So you have essentially what you're maintaining a read pointer and a write pointer. So it's still 2 pointers actually.
What if we maintain just 1 pointer and start from the beginning and compare the first element with second element, like index 0 and index 1? It's like just have single value to store, and we just say I and I plus 1, and we keep on swapping it.
No, but if you do that, that's not O of 1, O of n, right? It will be n square, isn't it?
No, we are not actually comparing every element with every other element. We are actually going to compare. We are going to start from the beginning and go through the loop only once. It will be O of n. And the first time we will compare 0th element and first element. The second time we will compare first element and the second element. And if both of them,
I will be back. I'll be over. Okay.
If two consecutive elements are 0, then we will actually swap to the third position, not swap among themselves.
No, I'm not following your algorithm. So can you just go over the algorithm one more time, a little slower though?
Can you just write it down in that that screen?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Thank you. Just type, use the chat, the CoderPad window that we have, or the.
Okay. So just you will parse it only once. It will be just O of n, and the first, we will just say. And we will compare here. So we will actually compare these two elements, and if in case leftmost element is 0, we are going to swap the leftmost element and rightmost element. In this way, we are actually just storing. We are just having O of 1, just having one pointer. But only tricky cases I need to still think about it is what if the consecutive numbers are 0. If we have 0th element as 0 and the first element also as 0, I'm actually still thinking about that case.
Okay, so that makes sense. So what we'll do is, so I understand. I don't think it will work specifically, because if you have the example that's actually given, you will not be with one loop. It's not going to be possible. So essentially, what this is you're trying. It's actually a sorting. One of the sorting algorithms is essentially this one, where it's more like you keep swapping alternate. You just keep checking alternate ones to do it. This is like bubble sort. For you to do this, you have to run this loop 10 times, and then finally the element you have sorted, which is more or less what you're trying to do. Except that the sort condition is not numeric value, but you're trying to compare with a 0 or non-zero. So,
is it
all right. So,
okay.
Yeah, the bumblebee's feedback here on the. So we can optimize by assuming that you can override the integers temporarily, and essentially what you're saying is, but you still will have to have 2 pointers. You will have a write pointer and you will have a read pointer. And every time you have a number, you just keep moving the read pointer, but then you only move the write pointer for every non-zero element, and you just keep copying, and you can keep moving, and finally when you're done with the reading and writing, you can just fill everything else to the right with zeros, and you're done. That's just another algorithm. It's no different. I think the swap algorithm also is roughly the same, so it's fine. Any questions on this one? So I want to get to the third question, and we may not get to coding in any of them, but we'll probably do some coding on the fifth question. So let's go to the third question. This is like essentially the question is a very classic question, which is to find the number of inversions in an array. And inversion is considered, so if you have an ascending array, then the number of inversions in the array is 0. Okay? And inversion is essentially a of I is actually greater than a of j. When I is less than j, that's considered an inversion. So if you look at line 48, the condition is what I mentioned. For every pair of I comma j where I is less than j, if a of I is greater than a of j, then it's considered an inversion. Does that make sense? Anyone concerned about the definition of an inversion? All right. So tell me, how would you solve this?
Is it not the same problem again? Like this? I think it's the same problem where you have.
Not really. Number of inversions. So if I actually had 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, the number of inversions here is actually 4. Because 7 is to the left of 1, 7 is to the left of 2, 7 is to the left of 3, and 7 is to the left of 4. So it's 4 inversions.
Yeah, but that's what you are just keep on going until you find. Oh, and if it is 2 and 1, what happens if it is 7, 2, 1, 3, 4?
If it's 7, 2, and 1, right? If that's the case, then it's 4 inversions because of 7, and it is 1 inversion because of 2.
Yeah.
So 5 inversions.
Yes. Okay.
If it is 7, 4, 3, 2, 1 in the reverse order, then it's actually 4 inversions because of 7, 3 inversions because of that, essentially. So it's 10 in this case.
Wow, that's n squared. I need to think about an algorithm which is...
N square is not always bad, just FYI. So the n square solution, like, is there anyone here who's not comfortable with an n square solution for this first, like who does not know how to get to the n square solution? And if you want, we can quickly run through that. That's why I'm asking. If you are, then either say so in the chat window or in the text coder pad, in the Etherpad, so that we can talk through that. If not, let's talk about how to make it better. Go. So this is a trick question, by the way. This question is asked so many times that people actually know the answer to it. But if you don't know the answer to it,
you're looking for the index, right? If you are...
I mean, so that's why, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, so I'm going to stay quiet. And,
okay.
And if no answers, then I can give. Yeah.
You can basically, can't you do a simple math, like what's the largest number at the end index and what's the smallest number, like, and then...
It's not, right? It's not just the largest or the smallest. So folks who are actually looking at the shared pad, it's on, if you go to the meetup, in the comment I have pasted the public.etherpad-mozilla link in the comments, the very first comment. So please go and click on that. You should be able to see the shared screen.
I see the shared screen and it says waiting for presenter to share their screen.
Oh no, not the shared screen in conference. I'm not using that. Actually, I can probably use that. I'm not using the conference to share the screen. I'm actually using CoderPad or whatever, Etherpad, public Etherpad. So there's a URL that you just need to go to. public.etherpad.mozilla.org. It's in the comments in the meetup.
Okay, just a minute.
Yeah, you can actually do a merge sort kind of thing. In the merge phase, you can actually look at the index and the number, and when you are comparing the part 1 and part 2, and if they are out of order, then you count it. That would be like a log n.
Because it's merge sort.
That could be one solution.
Not log n, but n log n.
N log
n. Yeah, it's better than n square, but it's an n log n. All right. So the
will you not need extra space?
You need extra space because at least the typical algorithm that you use to do merge sort, you will use extra space.
Right. Order of n. Yeah.
Yeah, order of n extra space is used, but I think there is an in-place merge sort which is like ultra complex. So I don't know that particular algorithm at the top of my head. So typically, I don't see that being asked that often. So here's the stupid part about. I don't like this question for that reason. The stupid part about this question is that if you need to understand the property of merge sort, and in merge sort, what happens is that you're actually trying to merge. You're trying to divide the array into like 2, sort them independently, and then like try to merge them. That's what you're trying to do, right? Okay, and then you keep subsequently dividing it into 2s and 2s and 2s till you actually reach one element, like just 2 elements. In that case, if it's a single element, there's nothing to sort, so you just have to go on merging. In case of a merge operation, if you have a left and a right array and you're trying to merge them, the number of times, like if it's perfectly, like there is no inversion when you consume all the left array and then you start with the right array. There's no inversion there. Correct?
Yes.
Can you repeat? Sorry.
if you consume all the left array first and then you consume the right array, then there is no inversion.
Yes.
In a merge, right? That means that every element in the left array is less than the all elements in the right array.
Yes.
Okay. But instead of that, if you actually consume the first element of the right array, what does that mean? It means that whatever is left, whatever is remaining in the left array, right? If there are 6 elements in the left array, there have been 6 inversions.
Yes.
Okay, so if this is your left array and this is your right array, I'm on line 56 if you're not seeing it, and there are like 3 elements here, A, B, C, and you have 3 elements here, X, Y, Z. If you want, if in the target array, if it's X coming in here, that means that X is smaller than A, B, and C. That is 3 inversions.
No, not necessarily, right? Because how do you B and C could even be smaller than X as well?
No. A, B, C is already sorted, right? This is during the merge phase. If A, B, C is sorted and X, Y, Z is sorted, and if you're putting X here instead of A, that means that there are this operation accounts for 3 inversions.
Yes.
Okay? Then you put A, no inversions because of that. Then you put B, no inversions because of that. If you put Y, this accounts for 1 inversion.
Yes.
And then you put Z, that accounts for 1 inversion. And then you put C, which accounts for 0 inversion. So every time you put something from the left array, it accounts for 0 inversion. Every time you put something from the right array, it accounts for whatever is remaining elements in the left array. That is the number of inversions that it accounts for.
Yep.
And you just have to aggregate this data all the way up. So assuming that you had A, C, D in when you were originally sorting it, right? The fact that you actually flipped it around actually there was an inversion there as well. So you have to, so as a part of the merge sort operation, you just have to aggregate the data and count the inversion. So that is a theory. It's a dumb question for that reason. If you understand merge sort, the realization that merge sort actually results is actually counting the number of swap operations you're doing is actually resulting in the inversion is not an easy leap to make. And if interviewers expect you to do that, then it's just a stupid interview question. But it's asked so many times.
But in this case, to solve this question, I will have to either modify my original array, somehow do this in-place merging, or I need to create a duplicate of the array, right?
In-place merging is going to be super tricky, and
yes.
And I don't think that's generally not a part of this thing. So usually extra space is given in this case, and they're expecting to get to an n-log-n solution.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So again, for folks who want to code this, the easiest way to code this is to do the n-square solution to get the data and do the merge sort and then get the data and see if they both align. Try random values and you should be able to test it yourself. Okay. I want to get to 5th question and then we can jump to the 4th question after that. The 5th question is given a 1-bit screen where columns are actually encoded in bits, like 8 columns are encoded in bits. I want you to draw a horizontal line. The question makes sense, or I can just let me explain the question. So if you get to the shared screen, line number 63, 64. So if you want to 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these are all the pixels on the screen. Okay. So this is how the screen would be. Okay, so there will be multiple lines of this. Okay, so this is how the screen is. So if I want to draw a line, right, so this is the 0th location, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'll add a space, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Okay, so this is all the 0th location. This is like 10th location. This is 20th location and so on. So imagine this is like a graphical screen, right? So my ask is that I want you to draw a line in the first row from the 12th pixel to the 29th pixel, right? Then what I want you to do is I want you to
12 is this one. So 1.
Is it 8 columns encoded in a bit or 8 columns encoded in a byte? I think it should be byte.
Did I screw up on the text?
You said bit.
My mistake.
That's why I got confused. Yeah.
Sorry, my mistake. I should have. I meant byte. It doesn't. Yeah, so it is a byte. Sorry, I should have. So that's what it is. Essentially, what you're doing is you are actually setting in the first byte, you're setting the last 3 bits or last 4 bits to 1. In the second byte, you're setting every bit to 1. In the third byte, you're setting the first 7 bits to 1, and that's the line that you're expected to draw here. How would you go about doing that? Is there anyone who needs more information on this question?
Could you explain that one more time, please?
Yeah, so the question is that in this particular case, I'm starting with a screen which is all full of zeros. So the first byte value is 0, second byte value is 0, third byte value is 0, and fourth byte value is 0, and so on. I'm on line 65. So if you need to set all the pixels from the 12th pixel all the way to the 29th pixel, then the way you do it is you set this pixel to a value of 15, and this pixel to a value of 255, which is the second array, second element, and the third one you set it to 254, and you're good, right? Does that make sense?
Unfortunately, not at all.
Second? Sorry, what was that again?
Oh, I still understand the byte operations, but I don't understand the graphical operations at all, unfortunately.
It's not 15, right? It is the last 4 bits that have to be set, right?
Correct. The last 4 bits are...
15
is the last 4. 15 is the last 4.
15. So 1 byte, right?
8 bits in a byte.
Yeah.
So the last 4 would be 15, right? What is the binary representation of 1? It's 0001.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So okay. Sorry. Yeah.
LSB, MSB. Least significant bit to the right, most significant bit to the left.
Okay. Yeah, I reversed the order. Okay. Got it.
I think I screwed up in my zeros. It should have been, there should be one more. There should be one more here. So essentially it's this. So it's not 254, but it's actually minus 252. I was just looking at the number of zeros I had put. It's different. Okay. So you need to set the first one to 50. The first one remains 0. The second byte becomes 15. The third byte becomes 255. The fourth byte becomes 252. And for the person who was asking about like how's this graphical thing, is that essentially if you just were to print the binary representation of these values, it will look like it look graphically all zeros as like a black screen, and some of them will be ones, and that represents like a bulb that is on, so that looks like a line. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of how it. This is like old school, like monochrome screens that we used to have.
Mm-hmm.
These days, even monochrome screens actually have multiple levels of depth, so math is not that simple anymore. Right? So who wants to give it a shot? 6 minutes more to go. Come on.
You just scan, not scan, if you think of the screen that you have, it's like sort of a big bit array. So you're just looking at one naive way of doing this would be go byte by byte and see if your byte falls in the range the things that you have to, like you look at the first 8 bits, the second 8 bits, and so on. In this case, the first 8 bits will have nothing to do because you want to start from the 12th bit. So, you look at the second bit, so you know that you have to turn on, everything, your byte, the byte actually partially overlaps with the range. And so, in this case, you have to turn on the right set of the particular byte that you are looking at, by the byte boundary, in this case 16 bits minus the interval start. So that's that will be like you have to turn on the 4 bytes in 4 bits, the rightmost 4 bits, and then if it is completely inside it, then all you have to do is just you have to OR it with 1 left shifted by 8, and not one left shifted by 8, but you can by OR it with say 256, or you can actually 256 the correct number which sets all the bits, and the same. I mean, everything, if it completely lies inside, then you have to turn on the entire every bit gets set. On the other hand, you will go to the rightmost. At one point, the byte boundary will be greater than what your rightmost, the right interval endpoint. In which case, you take the difference between that particular byte start and your byte end, and your interval end, and then just set that many bits. And I'm being very abstract here, but in this case you could predefine constants for each of the for turning on 1 byte is 1 bit is 1, turning on 2 bits is 3, and you could just define all of these things, all these different cases, like for what is it, for 1 bit, 2 bit, and then you just OR it with the correct value. In almost all of them will be, many of them will be setting all the bits, only 2 bytes, the one overlapping with your left and one overlapping with your right, will be anything different. But this is a very nice solution.
Got it. But I think
will there be any bits which will be already be set and we need to set to 0? Like on the screen, we can assume the screen is always blank.
No, you may have some of them which is already set to 1, and if it is, then you're just drawing a line. You're not setting it to 0 specifically. That's why he's using an OR and not a replace.
Right.
No, but like if for example, if I already have, say, in the first byte, if I have first 2 bit already set to 1, I will have to set them to 0 as well, right?
No. You should not be setting it to 0. That will be a prerequisite. So if you had these 2 as 1 already, right, that essentially is 128 plus 64, right? No, it is 128 plus 64. So that's 192. So the value was 192 upfront.
Yeah.
Then what you should be doing is you should leave those 2 alone, and you should be making it as 192 plus 15, which is 207 in that case.
Okay. So I don't need to clear up any bits. Like okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to clear up. But I think I like the solution. The only thing that I don't like about your solution is this whole concept of you mentioned where you're saying that you will keep the constants for the 1 bit on the right, 2 bits on the right, and 3 bits on the right, and so on, right? You really don't need to do that, because what you can do is you can actually start with 255, and you can right shift 7 times to get the first one, right shift 6 times to get the second one, right shift 5 times to get the third one, and so on. You can actually mathematically compute that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Well, the memory requirement is not large, right? I just need to keep 16 byte of data, which is okay, right?
I understand that, but you can actually just generate that information, because if the system were to change to a 32-bit data set or a 64-bit data set or something else, I mean,
yeah, that's right.
It's not complex enough. It's like at this point of time, it's just telling you how simply you can look at it as a bit manipulation thing. That's good. There is one bit of issue with this thing that we haven't talked about, is what happens if I ask you to set from like the 12th bit to the 13th bit.
Which is easy, right? Like, I'll figure out that.
It's easy, but that's the exception condition. So when you originally proposing a solution, you did not consider the end condition. Whoever was speaking did not consider this exception scenario where this happens, because what you will end up doing is you will end up picking this number and this number, ORing them both with the same bit, and essentially you will be left with 1 1 1 1 1 1. Right? Yep. And that is not right, and that's not fair. So think about that. We are at the 8:30 mark. I just wanted to take like 2 minutes to quickly talk about what we're doing and how, and then let's just move on to the next meetup, possibly next week. Right? So what I wanted to do was, so folks who have actually been, who know the Seattle Tech Interviews meetup group, please do sign up to the meetups that are actually happening over Saturdays in different libraries. We actually run through similar questions in person. Folks who are not in Seattle or in the Seattle area, this is probably what you have. There are a few other meetup groups that I know of that try to run things online, but I'm not seeing anything be done consistently. My hope is to actually run this every week, and I tried recording it. I'm going to play back the recording to see if it's come out well or not. I don't think I'm going to publish it at all. If you're looking at the recording or you want it, let me know. I can probably privately share it with you, but do that. I definitely want you guys to practice these questions, write code. I don't think we wrote code today at all. We just discussed algorithms. So go ahead, write the code, and do send it to me. You can use a Meetup to send me messages, or you can also send it to me at vivek@sdeskills.com. I've just pasted my email address right in the top, line 4, and I'll get back to you with a code review. And let me know if there is any way I can help. And what I request of all of you is spread the word. Let your friends know. The more people that get in, the more the merrier. And you should be looking at forming your own small groups within wherever you are and practice more and more, because I think the only way to get better at this is to practice a lot more.
Question.
Go ahead.
I have a former colleague who's in the middle of California, and let's put it this way, his company's looking shaky and he's trying to ramp up. So can I invite him to the Thursday onlines? Obviously it's impossible for him physically to come to Seattle for the Saturdays, but
absolutely. Please invite. And this is, I think I saw, I'm just looking at the people who have logged in. I think I see at least one person who's logged in from China, and one person who's actually logged in with an area code, like a country code of 85. I don't know what that is. So this is global. I mean, anybody can log in. All right, and it's better with participation. I'm a little I'm happy that we had a few of you who are participating actively, but I am looking at others to start participating as well. I mean, this is not interview practice, and problem solving is not a spectator sport. You will have to be participating actively so that we can just learn more and try out. Until you apply yourself, it's not going to work. So please do that. Again, let your friends know. Let me know if there's anything I can do differently. And please suggest topics for next week's session. I'll have something next week, and I'll come prepared with some questions. I try to post the questions by Monday so that folks have some time to look at the questions and practice and come and prepare for these sessions. Right?
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Yep.
Anything else? Any feedback, or any other ideas or questions?
Actually, I wanted to remind about this Saturday's in-person meetup. Can I?
Go ahead. Go for it.
So yeah, we will be discussing dynamic programming, like as we discussed in the previous meetup. We'll be discussing dynamic programming, and please be prepared with like read a little bit about it, and then try to solve the coin change problem by yourself. Just search for coin change problem in any search engine, and then you will get it. So in the next meetup, we can discuss that problem, and then we can go take some more advanced problems.
This is for the Saturday class that you're running, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Got it. So is this the same one as the one that's posted?
Yeah, the Rahul runs that. It's a Seattle Tech Interviews. It's in the Redmond library between 2 p.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Yeah. I have been to that. Great. Okay. Thanks. So are you running something as well, Vivek? Is this the same one? Just curious because.
It is the same thing. So I do participate in the Saturday sessions as well. I've not been there for the last one, but I have been there for a couple of sessions before that. I will be there this Saturday, and I should be there next Saturday as well.
Yeah, I've taken a break as well, but when Tree was there, I did used to come now and then, but I will probably try to be more frequent now.
Got it. And this, the 16th is actually a session that's led by Eugene, and it's a problem-solving workshop with super advanced concepts. So if you guys haven't RSVP'd for that, please do it right now. The room actually is a 100-person room, 120-person room. So we have space, and we've got about 60 people signed up already. But as it becomes closer to the date of the event, the spaces just disappear fast. So please make sure that you RSVP right away if you want to be a part of that event. All right.